You're listening to the End Zone Scoop, where three girls, two Brits and one American, discuss the beautiful game of American football. So join me, Liz Bhandari, NFLGirlUK, and my co-host Dayna O'Gorman from Our Turf Football and Shona Duthie from 99 Yards. Enjoy the show! Welcome back to End Zone Scoop. In this episode, we'll be discussing the NFL Draft 2021, the standout players of the years, and whether we think Dwayne Haskins was right to be released. But ladies, it's the final show of 2020, and I just think that it's crazy. Like, this year has flown by so much.
Oh my God, I have to totally disagree. I feel like 2020 has been like trying to pull a toddler out of the toy section of a department store, like kicking and screaming and not wanting to go. I'm so over this year. And, you know, it has just been an awful year for so many people. Not that we haven't had some good things, because some good things have come out of it. But, oh my gosh, I'm not sad to see this one go, ladies.
That's to my mom yesterday. It's like one of those years that things like it felt like it happened yesterday, but also happened about 12 years ago. I feel like I'm Benjamin Button in reverse. So I feel like I'm over the year also. 2021's got a better ring to it than 2020.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, well, that's pretty fair.
Over it.
Completely over it. But I don't want to be, you know, the bummer, but like 2021's probably not going to be that much different to start with. So
just stop it. It's going to be so much better.
Well, hopefully, plus one will be better.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
I mean, I'm usually a happy bunny.
I did say this yesterday that like the start of 2021 is going to be like an extension of 2020, but then come the summer, it will be, I hope, a new year completely. Well, obviously it'll be half a year, but to me, it will be a new year.
Maybe we should re-celebrate. We should re-celebrate New Year's like June 1st.
Oh my God. The thing is, I think I'm going to be either like so train wrecked, as in like I drink so much that I'm like sleeping in the grass outside, or I'll just be like crying hysterically because it's all over.
We're ready. Either way, we'll take it on.
We will. Dayna, why don't you give us an update on the playoff scenario?
Well, we are going into week 17, and there's a lot of teams that have already clinched their playoff scenarios, and a lot of teams that have already clinched their divisions, excuse me. But there are still a few up in the air. There's literally a total of 18 teams that are still in contention to make it to the Super Bowl. So that's the teams that have already locked in and the teams that are still have to win and they're in for this week. So this hasn't happened. Like there hasn't been that number of teams still possibly able to make it to the Super Bowl since 2006. So I think that says a lot about this season and how competitive a lot of these teams have been. And how uncompetitive some of the other ones have been. But anyway, that's another question, another story. So let's start with the AFC. We're going to talk about when and they're in. So there are 5 teams that are left in the AFC that are battling for conference, for their conference Final Four playoff berths. So there's 4 spots left. So the Ravens, they are 10-5. If they win in Cincinnati on Sunday, they're in. It'll be their 3rd consecutive trip to the playoffs. If Cleveland, who is also 10-5, wins at home over Pittsburgh, who is 12-3, but we understand right now that Pittsburgh's a little questionable. Then they will be in the playoffs, their first playoff berth since 2002. Browns fans are through the roof right now. They're so excited. And you can't tell me that team is not going to be completely jacked and ready to play to make it to the playoffs since the first time, in 18 years. That's insane. So then we have the Miami Dolphins, who are also 10-5. So all 3 of these teams are 10-5. That's how great the AFC has been this year. If they win in Buffalo, then they will be in the playoffs for the first time since 2016. I think that's a little bit harder of a task with as well as Buffalo's been playing, but you never know any given Sunday. And then the last team that's winning their in is the Tennessee Titans, also at 10-5, who, if they beat Houston, they will get the division title for the first time since 2008 and be in the playoffs. Now, the Indianapolis Colts, who are also 10-5. I keep saying that number for a reason, because it is ridiculous how many double-digit wins there are, double-digit win teams in the AFC. So the Indianapolis Colts, they host Jacksonville. They can still win their division if the Titans lose, which would lock up their first AFC South title since 2014. But they could also make the playoffs as a wild card team with a win and a loss or a tie by either Baltimore, Cleveland, or Miami. So one of those other teams has to falter in order for them to make it in. It's crazy over in the AFC. It's so much fun to watch. So much at stake for all of those teams this Sunday, which is really fun in the last week of the season. Now, if we look at the if we look at the NFC next, there are 6 teams in the NFC still battling for those final 3 playoff berth spots. So we start with the Arizona Cardinals. They fly to the Rams to play the Rams on Sunday. The winning team, so either one of those, will be awarded a wild card berth. Okay. Now, the Chicago Bears can also return to the playoffs if they win over Green Bay. Tall order right now on Sunday. And then the Washington football team needs to beat Philadelphia on Sunday Night Football to clinch its first playoff berth and division title since 2015. Now, you get underneath of that and it gets all crazy, because we know that every single team other than Philadelphia in the NFC East can still win the division, which is insane when you talk about week 17. So that is the Cowboys and the Giants play at MetLife Stadium on Sunday. The winning team keeps its playoff hopes alive, but it needs some help from some other teams in order for them to get in. Now, it is what's interesting over in the NFC. In the AFC, the Kansas City Chiefs have the number 1 seed locked in. They're getting their bye week. That is all said and done. But over in the NFC, there's still lots of possibilities. Green Bay, the Packers, the Saints in New Orleans, and the Seattle Seahawks all could still get the number 1 seed. There's all kinds of reasons and how. So basically, Seattle has to win. Both Green Bay and the Saints have to lose. Green Bay loses, but the Saints win. The Saints are number 1. And then, of course, if Green Bay wins, they're the first seed. So there's lots to be watching for this Sunday. But I think it's a lot of fun that there's still this many important games in week 17. There's very few teams who are actually sitting their starters. I know the Steelers are sitting a bunch of starters. Kansas City obviously is sitting some starters. But a lot of other teams are letting them play because there's still so much at stake. I love it when the playoffs come down to the last week. And I know not everybody does, but I just think it makes it so much more fun.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think, well, I mean, with any season, it gets boring when it's the same team, which was always the Patriots. That's definitely not happening this time around. So, yeah, I think you're right. It's the whole any given Sunday situation. Like, whatever you think was about to happen, like, often is not how it ends up going down. So, no, I love it.
I think what we're going to see too, especially in that NFC, the fight for that top seed and that number 1 seed in that bye week, I think all 3 of those teams play at the same time on Sunday. And so I do believe they're going to be watching each other's games kind of in the background to see if Green Bay starts to blow out the Bears. I wouldn't be surprised if both the Saints and the Seahawks pull their starters in the second half to give them a rest. Because if Green Bay's killing them, they're obviously going to get that number 1 seed. But I think if those games are tight, that we're going to see those starters play completely through.
It kind of like reminds me of what we have here in the UK, which is like Premier League Sunday, where it's like people can win the title or they can get relegated, and you're watching the channels and it's flicking between games, and then to see what the score lines are. It's kind of like that, and I find it really exciting because especially with the NFL Red Zone, where Scott Hansen is so excited and he's commenting all, it makes it even more thrilling, like I think, than Premier League Sunday, although Premier League Sunday can be really fun to watch too. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I think you're right. I think they will be keeping an eye on it but not too focused. And yeah, if the Green Bay are absolutely routing the Bears, then I think, the Seahawks and Saints will rest their starters in the second half.
It's going to be so fun. And I'm rooting for you, Browns fans. I want the Browns in. I do. I want them to make the playoffs. I think that would be so fun and such a boost for that fan base. I'm so excited for them.
Yeah, you hate Baker Mayfield.
I do. I don't hate him. I just don't like quarterbacks in general. I don't like quarterbacks in general, and he is one of the most annoying quarterbacks. So
I just don't like Baker. Sorry.
That's fair. Okay, there you go then.
I love him. I love his little dance moves.
No, he's trying to be cool now, and I'm like, I still remember you being really arrogant 2 years ago. Don't try and play coy with me.
But I love Myles Garrett, so I'm all cheering for them.
So moving to quarterbacks, Dayna, that kind of act out and do really stupid stuff, even though we were defending him a few weeks ago. At least it hasn't happened to our lovely Sam. So Dwayne Haskins, he's obviously been released by Washington. It came after he was removed as captain and fined $40,000 after being filmed a party without wearing a mask. So he broke coronavirus protocols.
Not just any old party.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to be diplomatic here. It was pretty naughty, Dwayne. Just we're not in striptease here. Anyway, he started Sunday's defeat against to the Carolina Panthers, but he was replaced in the fourth quarter, having lost possession with a fumble and 2 for interceptions. So not only did Ron Rivera feel like the move was the benefit for both parties, Haskins didn't come in and prove that he should still be there and be the starting quarterback. However, I don't see him not being with a team next year. The kid is talented. Like, I think his stuff in Ohio is enough to get him another job in the NFL. You sit him behind like an older quarterback and he, learns stuff. He was thrown in the deep end at Washington, and we said this before, and he wasn't given a chance to really show what he was capable of. Like we talked about him last season, he was begging his players to help him. He's like, what can I do to make you play for me? Which is heartbreaking to see for a kid who's only 23. But yeah, apparently the Panthers are already interested in him. So my question is, was the release right? Which I think it was. And where do you see him ending up next? Because to me, he's definitely going to be in the NFL next season.
Yes. And yes. So here's the thing. The Washington football team as an organization is a disaster. We've known that for years, and it's done nothing but get worse. I think, ladies, that we've talked on this podcast earlier in the seasons when we were talking about Haskins, we went clear back to Robert Griffin III and how I truly believe that they absolutely destroyed his career in Washington, and it was methodical and terrible, and that's been 9 years ago. But so the interesting thing I find about this is they were having this constant kind of carousel of quarterbacks there for a while. They bring in Alex Smith, who, if you ask me, would have been the perfect mentor for Haskins. Alex Smith is a gentleman. He's a professional. He's fantastic teammate. He's just an all-around good guy. And so I think that was a good situation. But then when Alex got hurt, he was pulled. There was, he wasn't around as much. But from what I've read and what I've been told by people who would know is that Haskins was not the choice that the team really wanted, but Dan Snyder really pushed for him. Well, we all know about Dan Snyder and his judgment, so we're just going to let that slide because I don't think he'll be an NFL owner for long. But so what does that mean for Haskins? What does all this mean? It means Ron Rivera should absolutely be able to pick his own quarterback. He was stuck with Haskins. That's not what he wanted. And so fair, whatever. Let's move on from that. Do I think Haskins deserves a second chance? Absolutely. I don't think one team should ever define, playing for one team, aka Sam Darnold, should define who that player is. And so I think he does deserve a second chance. But I will say this. I think wherever he goes, it's going to have to be a very strong organization with a very strong veteran that can teach him the proper ways and the way to lead a team. The reason why that team didn't follow him is because he is not a leader. He needs to learn how to be a leader. Carolina would be a nice place for him. I think Teddy Bridgewater, I don't think there's a person on the planet that dislikes Teddy Bridgewater. I think that he's just, universally beloved. And so I think that would be good for him to sit behind him. But I think you're right. I think it has to be a good, strong veteran to kind of teach him the ways. And I hope he gets that chance. And I'm 99% sure he will.
Somebody said the other day, watch this, you'll end up in Tampa behind Brady. And I was like, oh my God, that would just be like...
That would be the worst.
I know, like, no, he needs to go somewhere slightly different.
But why would that be the worst, though?
Because Brady is on the record for saying he is not there to teach someone how to take his job. Like he is not a mentor. Okay. He is not there to teach someone. And that is absolutely okay. I don't think that you should have to teach someone how to take their job. Now, Aaron Rodgers also said the same thing, but apparently he's been fantastic to that rookie that sat behind him. So kudos. Oh, that's hard for me to say, but kudos to Aaron Rodgers for that. But so that's, Tom Brady is not there to mentor anybody.
No, but I mean, looking at Haskins' stats this year, right? They're not that terrible. I think it's just built around, like you say, the Washington football team has just been a terrible organization. He's completed 148 of 241 passes for 1,439 yards with 5 touchdowns. Okay, he has had 7 interceptions and fumbled 6 times.
Honey, his stats aren't good.
But they're not terrible. They're not terrible.
Okay.
There's people who are worse than him.
Oh, for sure. No, for sure. You're absolutely right there.
That has been in the NFL. 4 years. And I think, he deserves another chance somewhere else. And I don't think Tampa's right because of Tom Brady's attitude. Mm-hmm. But I think Carolina might work. A team that really needs another backup quarterback, I think, is where he should end up.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, at the end, you could say him being released was harsh. But I mean, it was his second time being caught basically violating the protocols. Fair play, I haven't seen pictures or videos of the exact scenario. Like here in the UK, if you've got a drink, you don't have to wear your mask, that kind of thing. But either way, it's selfish and he's put the whole team at risk. I think it's interesting they've cut him after his second violation rather than a 3-strike system. I don't know, maybe they believe in that whole fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. So maybe that's the rule they went with.
I think also Washington understands that they're on the brink of being able to go into the playoffs, and you just cannot endanger a team that's on the brink of going to the playoffs, even though they're a terrible team. They still, you cannot endanger a team that then make them all miss the play. That would be terrible. So I think that's probably why they said, nope, this is too close to playoffs and this is your second screw up. So.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with that. And obviously he's in the limelight, but what silly stuff have we done when we were young? I fell asleep outside McDonald's clutching my shoes at 19 because I wanted a Big Mac and my brother was coming to pick me up and he was like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just taking a nap in a street. We do stupid stuff.
So dangerous.
At least my brother was there. My brother was there. He was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, sleeping. He's like, where's your bag? I'm like, I'm hugging it. He's like, no, that is your shoes. And I was like, oh.
Where was the bag?
I don't know. Lost the bag.
But Shona,
you lost it.
Shona, you have to remember that someone's not paying you millions of dollars to keep your crap together. You know
that's
what I mean?
True. I didn't need to keep my crap together.
It is a little different. And I know that we don't feel like we should have to put those restrictions on there, but when you decide that life, when you decide that your life is, an NFL life, you just have to start making different decisions. But what I'm hoping for him is that someone gives him a second chance to reevaluate the decisions he's made. So that's what we can hope for.
Well,
fingers crossed.
Dwayne, wish you well. But if you do get to another team, don't muck it up this time, because we were rooting for you. We said you could be Aladdin. I don't think you're Aladdin anymore. You're more Jafar.
We were rooting for you.
He's more Jafar. He's trying to get everything for his own gain. Well, no. Go back to your genie and figure it out.
All right, guys, let's talk about standout players of the season. Now, you can literally pick any player you like, so rookie, veteran, whatever, and somewhere in between. For me, I think the player that really stood out this season was wide receiver for the Vikings, Justin Jefferson. Now, I get it. He's not, got the most impressive numbers-wise. They're definitely rookies who have got better numbers than him, but he's had like 100-yard game after 100-yard game, and I think how he seems in his personality and his like maturity for a rookie, he acts like a player that's been in the league for years. So I think if anyone's going to deserve it, it would be him for me.
So for me, which people will be a bit like unsure why. Well, maybe they won't be. I'm going to go with DeAndre Hopkins purely because I feel like that guy has been released from his shackles at the Texans, and just totally got this new lease of life with Kyler Murray. I'm not saying that Deshaun Watson was the issue at the Texans, because that is not the case. The Texans just seem to be one of those other organizations where they just don't know where they're going. It's like the blind leading the blind between them and Washington. So for me, Hopkins' stats kind of read for themselves. For this season alone, he's got 111 receiving yards, 1,372 yards. So he's third in the league for that. He only has 6 touchdowns, which is tied for 25th. But if you think about it, he grabbed that touchdown against the Bills, and he did it the same for the Eagles, to make sure that they got the win. So I think he's been quite standout for the Cardinals this year, and just for finding his mojo again. It's like Austin Powers in the love scene when he needs to get his mojo, or is it Dr. Evil? One of them.
You just compared DeAndre Hopkins to Dr. Evil. That's hilarious.
Because he's found his mojo.
I know, it's just funny. I like it.
Listen to some Marvin Gaye and it's all right.
Always, but thank you, Marvin Gaye. All right, so here's the thing. If I were to look at any teams, and it's funny because I had this conversation. I am lucky enough that I get to vote towards some of these end of year awards that go out. So because I'm a member of Pro Football Writers of America, that group sends out awards, and so they send me, my ballot. And so I was really kind of thinking about this, and I asked some other people's opinion, but the person who has stuck out to me so much this year for his play on the field and his complete and total impact on a team is Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs for the Buffalo Bills has changed that team. I think that he has completely elevated Josh Allen's game. And I'm not saying that Josh Allen doesn't deserve credit for what he's done, because he has made a turnaround like no other. I was talking to someone, I said, well, he went from a solid player to almost elite. And they're like, he was barely solid before. And I went back and looked at his stats, and oh my God, the jump he has made this year is insane. But I think a lot of that has to do with having a player of Stephon Diggs' caliber on his team. It's just been amazing to watch. And it makes you look back at that Vikings team, and he was really good there too, but just not at this level. This level is just different. And it's just been so fun for that fan base, and it's been so fun to watch that him seeing like he's enjoying playing football again. He is actually who I am voting for Offensive Player of the Year. I think he more than deserves that. And so, yeah, I would definitely see he is my standout player for this year.
Andy decided to. So Andy is my partner. People don't know who he is, but I have mentioned him a few times because we talked a lot last time about how, we have a cheat list. Anyway, moving on.
Hey, we did not talk about having a cheat. You guys have a cheat list. We didn't.
Not again.
Moving on. I don't think Andy has a cheat list. I just have one. Anyway.
That he doesn't know about.
He decided to follow the Buffalo Bills. He's not really into NFL, but he is because he's my boyfriend. He has to like NFL because I make him watch it every Sunday. So I said, look, don't choose the Seahawks because you're choosing the same team as me. And his cousin supports the Cardinals, so he was like, I don't really want to follow the Cardinals either. I want to make my own choice. And he chose Bills because of Diggs and Allen's partnership. Because weirdly, he picked them the day they got absolutely hammered by the Chiefs. So that shows he's not a glory hunter.
Well, that's a relief.
That is a good choice. It's a great fan base. I always say if I had to pick an AFC team, if I was forced to switch divisions, it would be the Buffalo Bills because I've loved them for longer than you people have probably even been alive. But because I just loved that team that went to 4 Super Bowls back to back. I was very young when that happened, but it was very fun to watch. And anyone who would fight with Joe Montana was all right with me because that's how long I hated the San Francisco 49ers. But anyway, so I've always just loved the Bills. And so I'm so thrilled for them. And I just think that he really brought that spark to them this year. But
yeah, I actually got Andy a Jim Kelly jersey for his Christmas. Because I was like, I'm not getting you Allen and I'm not getting you Diggs because they're new. You need Jim Kelly.
Yes. Or Andre Reed. I could give you a whole list. They're so good. But Jim Kelly's fabulous. All right. Well, guys, let's move on quickly because I know we have a lot of fan questions too today. So I just wanted to give a quick update on where we stand with the draft order for the moment. So as of now, because we know it will change at the end of this week and then through the playoffs. But let's look at the top 10 right now. So as of right now, the 1-14 Jacksonville Jaguars, have the first pick of the draft. As we talked, I believe, was our last podcast, that's actually a great thing. And they could end up with Trevor, which they need a quarterback so bad. So that would be wonderful. Second is the Jets, followed by the Dolphins. Now, everyone's like, wait a minute, the Dolphins are in the playoffs. Yeah, they got that from the Texans 2 years ago. I'm telling you, the Dolphins, if Brian Flores does not win Coach of the Year, I don't know who should. It's crazy. How many draft picks they've gotten over the last 2 years is fantastic. So the Dolphins are at number 3. It's just going to make that good team even better. Then we have the Falcons, and then the Bengals, and the Eagles, and the Lions, then the Giants. Now, let me tell you, 2 top 10 draft teams could still be in the playoffs. Anyway, that's another whole conversation. Panthers, Broncos, Cowboys, Chargers goes to 12. It gets really fuzzy then at that point because then you have the Niners, the Vikings, the Patriots, which all kind of will change a little bit during this week. So that top 10 is pretty set, I think, for the most part, other than the Eagles and the Giants, which could flip around a little bit. But I think the most interesting thing here is that most of these teams in the top 10 are under 5 wins. And that's quite a few. That's a pretty big number. So I think that just shows the difference in the good teams and the bad teams this year in the NFL. But of course, the biggest story was the Jets. Well, they lost one, or they won one game, so they figured they might as well go ahead and win a second one, so that they are still now definitely locked into that second spot for the draft pick. So it'll be good here pretty soon, ladies. The draft, believe it or not, is just 5 months away already.
Scary, right?
I know, it's crazy.
Like,
super crazy.
We were saying obviously at the start of the show about, I said it felt like the year has gone so quick, but yeah, when I think back to like the draft,
so
that was an interesting experience. I actually really enjoyed the draft like this time around.
I did too.
Individual is cool.
I think it'll be the same. I can't see them.
I've got a feeling it's going to be as well. Yeah,
I can't see them having in 5 months' time. I can't see them having a mass event.
Yeah,
nope, they won't.
But also, if I see one more tweet being like Sam Darnold's good, and he got like an award, this Spectre thing, for the most angry one, and everyone's like, oh yeah, Sam Darnold, he actually really is a good quarterback. I was like, I know.
We've been telling you for months.
Look, I'm still on this love boat, and I'm not getting off.
Well, hey, cling on to that boat because we've got some questions. All right, so we've got 3 questions from Chris Lawton, the man who likes to keep us on our feet and obviously loves to play into Shona's New York Jets / Gaze Gate hands. So let's get to that one in a second. His first question is, at this time of year, the MVP race comes into focus, but who is your most entertaining player? I'll kick that one off. I'm going to go with Juju. I just love his little dances. Yeah, that is my only reason. Let's go with that.
I'm going to go with DK. I know we spoke about him last week in depth, and I won't do it again. But he's just so cool, man. Like his hair is a bit ridiculous, and I think he should maybe calm down a little bit with that. But that's just who he is.
Worse.
Well, yeah, I have seen worse, yeah. And that's just who he is, and I respect him for it. And he is he just suits that Seahawks team so much. And I imagine if Sherman comes back next year, him and Sherman on the same team. Oh my God, I don't know what I do to myself.
Don't do it. Don't do it to me. It makes my heart jump. I get too excited. So, when we were discussing the fan questions before we started recording, I mentioned that this is really a hard one for me. I feel like the players have been so subdued this year that they haven't been able to be, out in the community as much as they normally are, out doing fun things. Their personalities haven't shown through quite as much, understandably so. They're hopefully home with their families, quarantining, trying to keep their team safe, and not being too silly within the confines of what is going on in the world. And so I think that this year, some of the entertainment factor, I just don't feel like we've seen quite the same number of touchdown celebrations, like the dances, like we just are missing that aspect. Plus there's no fans in the stands, so they don't have as many people to show off for, so I think that it's just been a little different. And so I think that most people who follow this know that all three of us are Seahawks fans, but that's not why I picked this. This could be for any player who gets what they want, but I picked Jamel Adams. And the reason I picked Jamel Adams was for multiple reasons. He's done a lot for the team on the field, and that could be a whole conversation about how he and Dunlap have really sparked this defense. But that's not what this is about. This is about entertainment. And his pure joy, no offense, Jets fans, to leave the Jets organization. Those videos he posted of him, being so excited and having his cigars and all that other stuff about just leaving. And then that has continued. His press conferences, and I know maybe Seahawks fans don't watch them, they're hilarious. The dude jumps up and down. He's so excited. He's never been to the playoffs before. He just exudes how exciting that is. He yells and he hollers. He lights up cigars, as he's at, because they won the NFC West. And so I just think that that's been really fun to watch, the pure joy of someone who's enjoying playing football again. Like I said about Stephon Diggs, I think that that's, just watching someone being happy to be on the field and where they are has been really fun to watch. I agree with you on Juju, though. I know he pissed a lot of people off by dancing on those things, but I just thought that was classic. He was, he was just emulating T.O. and all the stuff that he used to do. I loved it. I thought it was great, but I think Juju was fantastic anyway. So I do agree with you too there, Liz.
He also just continued it on his TikTok videos. He was not giving that up, was he? He was like,
Till he got told to knock it off by Tomlin, who I also love. So
yeah, he was kind of like, yeah, I really don't care if you don't like my dancing, because I do.
Right, brace yourself, Shona. Will we see any unexpected dismissals on Black Monday? Will anyone hang on to a team that really shouldn't? Go.
Well, and start.
I don't think he will stay. And if he does stay, I might look like a gif out of The Simpsons when Homer Simpson kneels on the ground and shouts "No" in the rain. That will be me from Aberdeen if Adam Gase does not go on Black Monday. But I think he will. Apparently he's already been told that he will be fired after Sunday's season finale.
He swears that's not true. Like, he said it a million times. No, nobody's told me that. I'm like, you're a liar.
I mean, but he is Rasputin, you can't really trust anyone that looks like that. I hope that he does not return to the NFL for a very long time, because he is terrible. And I feel like I'm not very nice about Adam Gase, and I don't mean to be. I'm sure he's a lovely person, outside of the NFL. He's just not good. He is just god awful. And I think he just needs to sit back down and take a look at himself and think, I might need a new career. And hopefully it's not in comedy or anything near sports, because that guy just needs to get away from my television and an NFL badge. Anyway, moving on, because I could continue about Gase for a very long time, and I won't. I'm kind of worried about Anthony Lynn. I feel like me and Dayna briefly spoke about this before we started recording. He could be a surprise on Black Monday. And Bolt Beat actually already said that December's wins will not save him his job. They think that he hasn't looked good in the recent wins. But then he has had Justin Herbert in, and I think he's been a really good surprise for me this season. I know Dayna loved him at the start of the season. I wasn't that excited, and I've been completely told that was a completely wrong view to take. So yeah, I am quite worried about Anthony Lynn at the Chargers, but I hope he does stay, because I think he's a really good head coach.
So you think that he should keep his job?
I think he should. I think he needs to be given another go. Like, I don't think, but the thing is, the NFL is such a revolving door, and if they think it's not gone well, they will get rid of him. And it was a bit like when the Cardinals got rid of their coach before, Cliff Kingsbury. He only got given one season. Yeah, it wasn't great, but I believe he should have been given another chance. But that just doesn't happen sometimes in the NFL.
And next question is, if you were to make any New Year's resolutions for any NFL team, owners, coaches, players, who would you pick? What would it be and why? So I was struggling with this one because I'm not a big resolutions person anymore. I used to be. I used to love resolutions. Not anymore. This year was shit. So I'm going to go with, I think, the Atlanta Falcons. Obviously, we know they've got this issue where they just can't seem to keep leads, and they've pretty much had this issue, since the Super Bowl, and we all remember that one vividly. Bad times. I just kind of feel like if they were going to have a resolution for them, it would be to find like a decent new coach to kind of bring a good energy to the team, because whatever is happening is not working.
I have the best resolution for all team owners and coaches and players. If you see the name Adam or Gase near your team, just run.
It's a great one.
the NFL's resolution is to not rehire Adam Gase. Okay, we got it.
That's my tip.
I'll let Goodell know.
Yeah, tell us how you feel, Shona. I love it.
Our next question is from Johnny Cumberton. He asks, should the Eagles keep Howie and Doug or move on completely in 2021?
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Howie and Doug, that's head coach and GM for the Philadelphia Eagles. Listen, Connor Orr did a great, I don't know if you guys know who Connor Orr did. He did a great article for Sports Illustrated about the Eagles and kind of what they did right and what they did wrong. But he brought up some really good points when it comes to this team. And to be quite honest with you, there are things that there's been so much focus on Carson Wentz, that there's other issues within that team going on. You can't put it all on Carson Wentz. You put some of it on there. But obviously, this is the team that brought in Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts has been the spark for that team this year. They have been the light at the end of the tunnel for these Philadelphia Eagles fans, and he's been so fun to watch. So obviously, they did get that draft pick correctly. Now, does that save their jobs? I just don't think so, because what's going to happen with the Eagles is they're going to have to start from scratch. They have their entire roster has aged. They have not been back building for the future at all. So these are the names, you guys, you have to keep in mind that there's some of these are the stars that have no guaranteed money left on their contracts. Fletcher Cox, Zach Ertz, Jason Kelce, my favorite players in the NFL. Brandon Graham, who I want in a Seahawks uniform so bad I could cry, but that's another whole entire show. And Malik Jackson. So these are guys that are aging. They don't have any guaranteed money left. And then there's that huge cap problem that's coming in for most teams, but even more so for the Eagles, because the cap going down next year, they're going to have to make some moves there. Now, do you want this duo? Do you want Howie and Doug to be the ones making those moves? I think that's question. I think you have to look at, is this the team of front office people that you want rebuilding the Philadelphia Eagles? They were so good for so long. They just couldn't ever get over that hump. Now, when they did, it wasn't with Carson Wentz at the helm. Let's not forget that. That was Nick Foles doing. And so I think there's just a huge number of decisions that have to be made. So before this ownership group and before anyone starts cutting people's contracts left and right, they have to look at what is on the table. You have to consider at least getting rid of one, if not both of them. I don't know that you can put all of this on Doug Peterson. I think that there has to be some trade question marks and things that have come into it. So maybe you look at the GM and leave the coach. I'm not sure, but I think we all know the biggest question is, what do you do with those veterans contracts and what do you do with Carson Wentz? And who do you trust to make those decisions? So I'm thinking Doug stays. I'm not so sure about Howie.
Our next question is from Freddie Harper Davies. He asks, which team has been the most disappointing? Texans, Chargers, or Falcons? Now, it's kind of a hard one because I don't know whether to choose one or kind of rank them. So I would rank them as Texans being the worst, then Falcons, then Chargers. The reason why I say Texans is, I don't know, like, I've loved them as a team since they were on Hard Knocks years ago. Absolutely love JJ Watt. I think everybody knows that. And yeah, I just kind of think what a shame, like, his little rant the other day, like, he was so, like, passionate about that, and I don't know, it kind of made me really, really feel for him and obviously the team. Like, I hope that kind of spurs them on. I hope that gives them some kind of fire that they need to, you know, get themselves back in the game. That's my view.
Yeah, I mean, the Texans, well, I mean, it was like, you know, Avengers in reverse, because it just did not work for Brian at all when he was the I am inevitable being Thanos. At least Thanos got to rule for a while. I don't think Brian can take that title. I feel sorry for the Texans in a way, because I feel like they're a really talented team. I love Deshaun Watson. I think he's a really talented quarterback, and I don't know how they get out of this mess, because they gave away all their draft capital. So yeah, they're definitely the worst for me and the most disappointing. Yeah. But I feel like it was kind of inevitable preseason when they didn't get rid of the head coach and combined GM, which only works if it's Bill Belichick. The Chargers we've kind of already touched on with Annie Lynn. They've been topsy-turvy, but I feel like Justin Herbert's been a real shining light for them. And the Falcons, oh, you just want to hug them, don't you? Like, they just haven't recovered from that Super Bowl loss. And I remember I tweeted that one time, like, a year ago, and the Falcons fans absolutely slated me for it. And I was like, well, you know, it kind of is true. You can't hold on to a lead. And now it's proving totally true.
Yeah, sadly. All right, our final question is from Rakesh Pradhan. He asks, who is going to the Super Bowl? So, good question. Who wants to start?
I really want it to be the Bills. My heart
I would love that.
My heart says the Bills. My head says the Chiefs for the AFC.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be fair, he asked who's going rather than who's going to win. So I suppose we're going to look at it that way. I think it's pretty clear, yeah, Chiefs are definitely going to be there. Well, I don't know, maybe they might not be. But
I think it might be Green Bay as well. So if it is Green Bay, I am on the opposite train again, I'm afraid.
So I guess the real question is, would it be Chiefs or Bills in terms of from the AFC, right? I think the NFC could be, like, I don't know, to me it could be Packers, it could be Saints, it could even be us.
So if I were to look at this, it's harder to say who's going to the Super Bowl, because the NFC Championship and the AFC Championship game have given us shockers before. Yeah. Like, things that we haven't expected. And I think that if the NFC Championship game is in Green Bay, then Green Bay will probably take that, because it's such a difficult place to play on frozen hard ground in January. So I think that. But if the NFC Championship game is not in Green Bay for some reason, I think it leaves it up to a little more possibilities. I'm going to make half the people who follow me on Twitter really mad. I'm picking the Bills to go to the Super Bowl in the AFC. I think their trajectory is straight up, and the Chiefs have really wobbled as of late and let some teams hang around in the fourth quarter that they shouldn't have. And I think that's going to bite them in the ass when they play the Bills at some point. But I also thought that about the Ravens last year, and look at how that turned out. So I'm not usually right on these things, people. But I think in the NFC, it's a bigger question mark. I really think it's going to come down to where that NFC Championship game is played. I think it could easily be any of the top three. I think it could be Green Bay, could be the Saints, could be the Seahawks. Yeah. I don't see any of the teams underneath of them making a splash like maybe they could in the AFC. But if you were going to make me pick two teams, sorry, Rakesh, I kind of wiggled around your question there, but I'm going to pick the Buffalo Bills and, Lord help me, the Green Bay Packers. Yeah, that was gross.
I mean, It's just like when the 49ers got there last year, I was just totally on the other bus. I'm just not rooting for people are like, you should root for the NFC. It's your division. I was like, that's why I shouldn't root for them.
Exactly.
It should be, if it's not Seattle, I ain't rooting for them.
Exactly.
Especially if their last name's Niner or Packers.
See, sometimes that'd be nice to Baron support 49ers if, like when they were in the Super Bowl last year, I, was cheering for them because that's what a nice wife does, right?
No.
Dan.
Not my house. I don't know what your house is like, but not my house.
My house either. Not
Here's the thing, and we were talking about this last night on the Real Hawk Talk podcast. The thing about the 49ers team is I actually really like that team, not the team franchise, but the players on the team, their talent level is so good. This was just not their year. I don't want people to think that we're hammering on them too hard, but it's a rivalry. That's what we're supposed to do. But if they don't get eaten by the injury bug next year, they're going to be right back up there at the top again. Oh, this is going to go on for a while, ladies.
Definitely. Well, hey, listen, I said that was the last question, but I'm going to throw in a bonus one.
Okay.
Do we think that the NFL games will come to London next year?
No.
I don't think they will either, which is gutting, but being realistic, I don't think there will be any London games.
I don't think there's going to be mass events.
Yeah.
Mass events for a long time. I think, this is a bit corny, but I was listening to the Michelle Obama podcast the other day because I love her. And I listen to her when I'm running because she's very inspirational and it helps when I run. And she said the other day that we shouldn't strive for normal after the pandemic. We should strive for better. And I feel like that our way of life is probably going to change a little bit. And that includes mass events coming back as quickly as people want them to, I'm afraid to say.
Yeah, I think we're a good while off before we see games back here.
I don't know, ladies. I hate to be the naysayer here, but money talks, and that's a lot of money. So we will see what happens after this vaccine gets more widespread. I think it's taking longer for it to get out than they thought it was, and so I too think that the London Games will be pushed back at least one more year. But I bet some of
I think at least 1 year.
I think we'll see some bigger events sooner than later. Well, that's all for this week's episode of the End Zone Scoop. Thanks for tuning in, and if you haven't already, please rate, review, subscribe, and hey, tell a friend about us too. Until next time, thanks for listening.